Chances at taking the majority in the Senate, however, appear to be getting slimmer. Here's where we are right now. CBS News projects Republicans have 47 seats and Democrats have 46. Two independents who caucus with the Democrats are included in that tally. 7 seats remain up for grabs, including 2 in Georgia. CBS News projects Democrats have flipped the seat in Colorado, while Republicans have done the same in Alabama. For the latest on the race to Capitol Hill, let's bring in CBSN political contributor Molly Hooper. So, Molly, as you know, CBS News projects Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Senator Lindsey Graham won their reelection bids. No one was, I think, seriously concerned that Mitch McConnell was not going to win his bid, but there had been rumblings that it was a tight race between Jamie Harrison and Lindsey Graham, and millions of dollars went into that race. And in the end, it wasn't even that close. What, take me through what happened there.
Well, I think that this is sort of this day after reflection on what worked, what didn't work, and really going into these congressional races, including the House Democrats races and Senate Democratic races, there was so much money going to incumbents or going to challengers trying to take out Republican incumbents, and there wasn't a lot of return on investment. Jamie Harrison raised something like $350 million. That's a lot of millions. That's a lot of millions of dollars to not do as well as he was projected. And I think that, in a state like South Carolina, where Donald Trump was declared the winner, where the state was called for Donald Trump relatively early in the day yesterday, or in the evening, it was going to be a very difficult road for Jamie Harrison to defeat Lindsey Graham, who's represented that state for many, many years in the Senate and has a long track record there. But I think that, there was talk and sort of, like titterings among Senate Democrats of, there could be this blue wave. We could take the Senate. I saw some projections like Democrats would pick up between 2 to 7 seats. And, with Lindsey Graham's win re-election and a number of other Republicans like Joni Ernst of Iowa, Steve Daines of Montana, and it looks like Dan Sullivan of Alaska heading towards or winning their re-election battles. Again, Vlad, like you said, that road to a Senate majority for Democrats is slimmer and slimmer.
That's what I was going to actually ask you about, because I know there's still a few more races that are up in the air, but you say it doesn't look like it's leaning in the Democrats' favor. Are there any races where they could maybe flip the seat?
Sure there are. But now let's just keep in mind one thing. In order for Democrats to win control of the majority of the Senate chamber, not with the White House, but on their own, they needed to win essentially 5 Republican seats. If Democrats do win the White House, they would need to essentially pick up 4 Republican seats, because it was sort of a foregone conclusion that Doug Jones in Alabama, the Democrat who is a senator there, was going to be defeated, and he was. So where does that leave us? Democrats picked up those 2 seats, Gardner, and some have said that McSally in Arizona has, depending on who you look at, Arizona looks like it's going to go for Mark Kelly, the Democrat. So there's 2 seats. So Senate Democrats ostensibly need 2 more seats or 3 seats for an outright majority. They could have success in Maine. They might have success in North Carolina. And those are the 2 seats that they're focusing on right now. Possibly Georgia in the runoff election. But as of this point, it's just unclear.
So let's talk about Georgia, which has 2 Senate seats up for grabs. One of them had 2 Republicans, incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler and Congressman Doug Collins, who has conceded, but Democrat Raphael Warnock is still in it. So explain to our viewers, Molly, what's going on in Georgia and how these runoffs work, and how Kelly Loeffler found herself even seated within the Senate.
Well, that's a very good question, and that goes back to earlier this year during, dare I say it, impeachment. Who knew what happened to that? When the Republican governor appointed Loeffler to fill the seat that was vacated by Johnny Isakson, a Republican senator who left the Senate. And Loeffler was chosen for that seat. Doug Collins had been vying for it, but Brian Kemp went with Loeffler. Fast forward to today. Georgia, in order for a candidate to actually win the seat, you have to win for 50% plus 1 of the vote outright. Or if that doesn't happen, you're headed for a runoff, which will be held on January 5th. And there were about 20 candidates in this special election race, essentially, for Loeffler's seat. And so Loeffler was the top vote getter, and then Raphael Warnock was the second top vote getter. So they are going to face each other again in January, early in January. Now, on the other hand, you have Senator Perdue, who also needed to win 50+1. And as of now, it looks like he's just barely on that razor edge of having that 50+1. But until all the ballots are counted, we can't say that he actually won that seat outright. And if he doesn't get 50+1, then that seat too could be headed for a runoff on January 5th. But keep in mind, the election, Democrats had been sort of counting on this big wave of support from Democratic voters because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the top of the ticket. And so we won't necessarily see, or traditionally you don't see the same type of turnout for those runoff elections that like this would be.
So the Senate race in Maine is also an interesting one. You mentioned it. CBS News is characterizing it as a toss-up, with the incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins leading Democratic challenger Sarah Gideon by nearly 6 percentage points. But in Maine, they used ranked choice. So this is the first time that I think ranked choice will be playing a role in the race for the Senate. Can you talk about that?
Oh my gosh, don't get me started on ranked choice, because this is how I lost my presidential election for student body president at UC Berkeley, because of ranked choice. So what happens is, oh my gosh, and try to explain it to folks who don't understand it, because essentially what it is, when a voter goes in to cast a ballot, you rank your first choice. You say, okay, I want Sarah Gideon 1. I'll put down, let's see, Susan Collins 2, blah, 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 blah. After the first round of ballots have been distributed to all the ones, whichever candidates have the least amount of votes, those ballots that have a number 2, then that's where the vote will go. So say that I voted for Susan Collins first, and she happened to drop or something. The next person on my list, say, was Sarah Gideon. Sarah Gideon would get that vote. And so essentially what it allows is, it allows you to, unless Susan Collins can just win outright with 50%+1, a true majority, which could still happen, we could see these ranked choice, these essentially reallocated votes go to the next highest person. Because if you look at who else, there was about 13,000 votes for an independent candidate, I think 39,000 votes for the other candidate who is running in that race. And so all those votes, that's like 52,000 votes, will be redistributed to either Susan Collins or her opponent, Sarah Gideon. And so that's why it's just too soon to tell. In fact, in 2018, when ranked choice voting in Maine was first really used for the congressional race, Bruce Poliquin, it looked like Bruce Poliquin was going to win after election night, but because of ranked choice voting, he ended up losing. And so that's a real nail biter for Republicans, because, like I said, as of now, it looks like Susan Collins is above that 50%. But of course, not all the votes have been tallied, and the race has not been called yet.
Molly, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.